Hello and welcome back to another Fish Fridays with me, Ben, the Amputee Angler, where every Friday at 6 p.m. I will sit down and discuss with you one of the many fish species we have here in the UK. I'll talk rigs, tactics and baits, and I'll tell you about their sizes, and I'll even throw in a few top tips as well. And this week's topic is the mighty tope. So let's get to it. So the tope then, one of the few shark species we get here in the UK. Long, slender, although they do get quite a big belly on them as they get bigger. Silver on the top side, brilliant white underbelly, and a mouthful of absolutely needle sharp teeth that absolutely rips any bait apart, and also a lot of fishing line as well, depending how you're tackling up for them. Nice big pointy snout. And they've got a lot of electrodes, like every other shark species, on the underside of their nose that they use to detect electrical currents in the water. So much like your standard sharks, your great whites, your blue sharks, your freshers, those little electrodes, they pick up prey fish in the water, anything wounded. Big strong sense of smell as well, big smelly baits, you know, they home in on that. They've got a really incredible sense of smell in the water, as you would expect from a shark. Brilliant fighting fish. They are a bit Marmite. You either love them or you hate them. Some people target them specifically and they love them. Others, they're an absolute pain when they're fishing for other things, like turbot, for instance, down here. When I'm turboting, if we get a run of tope come through, it's an absolute nightmare. They bite your traces off and you don't often get them to the boat. So you're leaving fish down there with hooks in as well when you're doing that. Absolute pain when you're not fishing for them. But when you are, and I do quite like tope for this reason, when you are fishing for them, they can be great non-stop fun if they're in the area, and they are a really good hard fighting species as well. So located big numbers down the southwest there and up into Wales. They get some monster fish up around Wales. But yeah, big localised populations down there to the southwest. Here at the south coast where I'm from, Brighton, Eastbourne Way, we never actually used to see that many tope around here. And then the drift netting ban came into force, which I used to be a commercial, and I did bass drift netting for my sins. We always used to get big female tope, sort of 45, 50 pound. We used to get 4 or 5 a night, and we was only allowed to land 45 kilos. But we'd always get these big females tope, and it was a real shame to see when we got one, because they were always popped up, and by the time you get the nets in, they were dead. And you don't get much money for them, but they would spin the nets up and you'd damage your nets and the rest of it. But since that came in, the tope fishing here on the south coast has just exploded. And we see tope regularly now. And we've had boats going out there trying to shark fish with a chum bag over the side, and they're catching 15, 20 tope in a session. Out on the turbot banks when we're drifting through with baits, if there's tope in the area, it's an absolute mind-blowing situation, because every bait you pick down, you're just getting these tope picking up. But there's so many of them now here, so we've got a real good fishery here on the south coast. Sizes, they're a shark species. They do get very big from the shore and the boat. The shore record was recently broken by a fish up in Wales, I think it was, and it's just been ratified. It's not quite updated on the sea records yet, I don't think, but it was an 82 pound, 10 ounce fish from the shore, targeted as well. You know, there are these specialist tope hunters that are out there targeting these fish. Whole mackerel baits out from the shore, big squid baits. But yeah, 82 pound, 10 ounce, and it beat the old record by nearly 6 pound, I think it was. So boat record currently stands at 82 pound 8. So it's one of those few rare incidences with records where the shore record is actually bigger than the boat record. But that is an absolutely monstrous fish. Yeah, real crazy thing to be getting there. So that's the sizes. Average stamp down here, we see a lot of fish in the 10, 15 pound range. We don't see too many big ones here where we are, although I do know of an 80 pound fish that was caught off Eastbourne a long time ago now by a charter boat. I've actually got the numbers for it and I'm going to have a go this year. But there is the odd big fish knocking about, but you have to be targeting them to really sort of be finding those big fish. Otherwise you're just going to pick up the smaller ones. But yeah, nice big chunky fish, hard fighting and really great sport. So you tackle them from the boat. You don't need to go really big heavy gear with these. You don't need shark rods to catch them. I like to use a nice 12-20 or maybe a 20-30 depending on what else I'm doing at the time. If I know there's tope in the area, then I'll just beef up my end tackle, which I'll come on to in a second. But yeah, a nice 12-20 braid, nice long rubbing leader on that, a mono rubbing leader, because they do have a tendency to wrap up. So if you don't have a rubbing leader on, so it was getting your braid, and the braid will just part as braid does when it gets a bit of something sharp on it. And then I like to use a mono trace for my end tackle. I don't like to use wire. The reason being is I've seen a real nasty incident with a tope once where someone was targeting them with wire, and it wasn't the Teflon or nylon coated, whatever it is they coat wire in. It was just pure wire, and the tope wrapped itself up in such a way, and when the guy pulled on it to try and unspin it, it slit the tope's belly open, and it killed it. The tope was dead. You know, and that's not good for the tope, and it's not good for you as an angler either. It doesn't look good. So for that reason, I use mono. Mono's a lot softer. It's a lot more forgiving. So a nice 200-pound end trace for that, okay? And you're not going to go wrong with that. It won't bite through a 200-pound trace, especially if you do what I'm going to tell you in a second. But 200-pound, I like to crimp it when it gets to that. You can knot it with a Flemish eye or something like that. But when I start using the bigger mono, even for eels, I like to double crimp, and I'll talk about that in my conger eel video. But yeah, crimp either end. And then your hooks, circle hooks for tope, much better, much friendlier, and you get a much better hookup rate. An 8-0, 10-0 circle hook, hook your bait once through the mouth, and that's ideal. Live bait, dead bait, whatever you're going to be using, once through the mouth, and that's all you're going to need. They are voracious feeders, tope, and when they come on, they will be there in numbers, and you'll be getting them non-stop. They're not shy for a bit of heavy gear, so 200-pound mono is not going to bother them. And then obviously whatever lead you need to get down as well. You also need a T-bar for them. If you're bringing them in, just be careful to hold the belly of a bigger fish, okay? Because if you don't, the belly will sag. And in the water, obviously, the water holds the weight of the tope in there, you know, the buoyancy there. So a big fish, as it gets bigger, the water is what's holding that fish together. If you lift it out, take it out, and you're holding it up by the tail, which is a big no-no, that stretches the cartilage in the tail. You'll feel it sort of creak and crack. Just pick it up, get it by the belly, cradle it, all right? Just be careful of that mouth, because they are aggressive when they come on board. And if you get your hand near it, you will know about it, and it will give you a nasty cut. T-bar, long nose pliers or forceps, and a glove is a must when you're unhooking tope. So make sure you got that to hand. Like I said, 12-20, 20-30, multiply reel, fixed ball, however you want to play it. That's what I'll be using. So in terms of rigs and baits then, I like to keep it simple when I'm on the boat. I don't think you need to go too crazy with tope, to be honest with you. If they're there, they're there. They're going to take whatever you put in front of them, even if you don't want it, even if you don't want to target them. If they're there, you're catching them or losing them, as the case may be. Simple running ledger, and like I said, just a big heavy leader for them, 200-pound, 250, and then your circle hooks. And then what you can do as well is you can drop the bait down. If you're at anchor, you can drop the bait back over a bank or into a wreck or wherever it is you're fishing, and that will pick up your tope. A good fun way of doing it is to catch them on a float, like you would do when you're sharking. If you do that, massive, great lazy boy, not lazy boy, a big boy float, or even like something like a Lucozade bottle, and set your depth and trot it down the back of the boat, let it seek out down the tide, and just have your reel on your bait runner type thing if you're using a live liner, or just loosen your drag right off. So when you get a bite, it can pick it up and it can run, tighten down the drag and strike in. Float fishing is good fun for any species. I really like float fishing, but for tope especially, it's really good fun because you can have a couple of baits out at different depths and you can work out where they want it. You often get a lot of tope when you're sharking as bycatch as well. So, you know, if you're ever out sharking, do take a tope rod because it will pass some time. But yeah, nice, simple. As long as you've got that circle hook and that nice long hook length, 200-pound hook length, then you'll be laughing. You won't have any problems with tope. Not a particularly hard fish to catch, or one you need to really sort of do massive bait presentation with. On baits, live bait, dead baits, something nice and fresh, a mackerel, a whiting or a pout. They are scavengers as much as predators, so as long as it's got a lot of scent, change your baits regularly to keep that scent trail going down, and you won't have a problem catching these if they're in the area. Down here, sort of June, July, August time, that's when we really see them on the south coast here at Brighton, Eastbourne Way. That's when we start to see them in numbers. But yeah, you won't have problems catching them if you fish like that. Rubby-dubby bag out the front of your boat, get a trail going down, a few free offerings here and there as well. Just make that chum up. I've got a little chum video here, which I'll insert in the description. Not hard to make chum, don't be scared of it. Bran, fish guts all churned up and bits of odds and trails. You can get it from your local fishmonger for free. Go in there and ask them for all their bits of bobs. Just grind it down or just mash it up. Bag over the front of the boat or the back of the boat. You can put it down at the anchor, but I don't like to do that because sometimes it can mess about with your anchoring basically, and I don't want a big chum bag flicking over the side of the boat when I'm hauling the anchor and it goes everywhere, because it is stinky, messy stuff, hence it being chum. So just drop it off the back of the boat, and then that gets that scent trail down, and I promise you, if they're around, they will home in on like that. They will just zoom in, and you'll have God knows how many tope in the area, and you can have some really good sessions. So yeah, nice fresh smelly baits, mackerel, whiting, pout, anything like that. Hook once through the nose, no need to really go too crazy, and just put the boat out, fish it at a couple of different depths, find out where they're feeding, and you'll be into the tope in no time. Top tips for tope then. I'm not going to give you too many because I think they're quite a simple fish to catch, so there's not really a great deal that I need to tell you by way of top tips. What I will say though, to give you one little one, and it will improve your catch rates if you're fishing lighter gear, you're not targeting tope but they're in the area. Even if you are targeting them, what I would do is put a 6 to 8 inch length of shrink tubing over the end of your trace onto the eye of the hook. Just make sure it's moulded on there nice. And that shrink tubing, all it does is it just protects your line a bit better. Because if people sit and say, oh, I use wire, others they bite through it. I'm very anti-wire for any fishing unless it's sharking. I'm very anti-wire. I think there's no place for it. Personal opinion, others will disagree. However, 200 pound mono, 6 to 8 inch length of shrink tubing over the end, or a muppet like you would do congering. They're not scared to take it. That will protect the end trace a bit more. I do it when I'm turbiting. Certain times of the year, if I'm going out, I don't want to be fishing 200 pound mono when I'm turbiting. I'm sort of 30, 40 pound fluorocarbon. What I will do is put a 6 to 8 inch bit of tubing over the end, and that'll be for my turbot rigs, okay, on the end. Doesn't affect the turbot in the slightest. Turbot don't care. But if you do pick up a ray or a tope in this case, what it does is gives you a better chance of getting it to the boat. And if unhook it, get the tope gone, check the end of it, have a look at it, you will see it's really frayed up. If it's gone down for the mono, at least you've got your hook back. You can cut that bit off, retie your hook and your shrink tube, and you go again. That way you're not leaving hooks in tope, hooks in whatever else down there, because no one likes that. It doesn't do the fish any good, and it doesn't do you any good either, because you're losing your end tackle. So yeah, shrink tubing, and there we go, nice and easy. Top tip, catch a bit more tope.
So something I added last night, and it was more to sort of keep the last little bit of the hook length away from the trace to stop it spinning up. You know, when you're dropping down into 200 foot of water, sometimes the trace can spin up. So I added a little bit of stiff tubing just to basically try and prevent that, and also it gives a bit of abrasion protection. But that tope early, just that I've just caught now, I wouldn't have caught that had not had this tubing on, because this tubing, I don't know if the video can make out, but it's really gone to town on it. And had that doing the line, just the line, that would have snapped off through there, and I wouldn't have got that. It's not what we're after, but any fish is a welcome fish.
Well, that's been another Fish Fridays. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do like and subscribe. Remember, we have our whole series growing now on all the fish species around the UK. So if you've got something you're interested in targeting, something new, or you want to know the current records of something, or perhaps you've got a child or a family member or friend who's just getting into fishing, this is the perfect place to be to find out about all these different species. So please do hit the like and subscribe, and I'll catch you again for another Fish Fridays next week.